So I've always, my view on it is I try to buy what I can, the best I can afford. And if that means I only have two female breeders, then that's all I have. I don't really want to get a mid-tier one and then mess
Hmm.
around with having offspring that are kind of harder for me to sell.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Gecko Cove Connection. My name is Bobby, and today my guest is Bryan from Koala Geckos. Welcome, Bryan.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for having me. How's it going?
Hey, I'm super excited that we found some time. I know we're both really busy people with young families, and thank you so much for making time for me. This is huge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know you've been trying to get me on the show for a while, and I've just been super busy, so now's the time.
Now's the time. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, all right. So most people know who you are when they're dealing with gargoyles. But for the people who don't know you or don't know your geckos, we'll show them exactly what they're missing out on in a little bit. But when did you start getting into geckos or gargoyle geckos specifically? You don't have to go and tell us your whole story unless you want to, but just to give some people some reference on where you started.
Yeah, it was back in I think mid 2018 actually, so not terribly long ago. I was into carnivorous plants for a while, for actually like 10 years or maybe even longer than that, since I was a little kid.
Oh, that's
I,
cool.
I I grew and cultivated Venus flytraps, Nepenthes, the pitcher plants, the ones that you see in Asia.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just on like Facebook groups and marketplaces and selling those and trading. And some guy offered me a crested gecko for trade. And I said, "Oh, gecko." Yeah, I just got married. So I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool to have an actual like living, moving pet, that doesn't just
Yeah.
eat flies and just green, right? Plant." Um, so did the trade. Guy overnighted to me. That was pretty cool. And then from there, I I'm not sure how exactly I found out about gargoyles, but just like everyone else, I was captivated by the red coloring. So immediately, like within,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know, probably a month or so of having my first crested, I probably purchased like two or three gargoyles within a couple months. And then from
Oh,
there,
wow,
just
you
kind
jumped
of,
right in.
I did, yeah. It went in pretty quickly from there. And then I think I was breeding at the end of, I was pairing geckos at the end of 2019 because I bought
Oh,
some
wow.
the following year that
Some
were
older
basically
ones.
almost ready to breed. Yeah.
Oh, that's lucky. Very cool. Okay, so you were into plants before. That's one of the things that I've noticed. It's kind of cool that you did that before the pandemic, right? Because I feel like a lot of people were looking for a new hobby during the pandemic, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people, there's a lot of crossover, especially, plant lovers, animal lovers, the people just looking for new hobbies. It's interesting that that's exactly how you got into it was someone who liked both and just traded, just worked out in a trade. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had like reptiles and all sorts of amphibians growing up. Um,
Yeah.
but I I wasn't ever breeding them. They're just, I had like a leopard frog and anole lizards, a Pac-Man frog. So I just, here and there just had some reptiles growing up through when I was a child and through high school. But yeah, I never really got into breeding them because it just never, dawned on me that I could breed them. And it's as you know, it's amazing to actually breed them and see what you can create.
It is. And you've created some amazing, absolute stunners. And so I have to ask,
Thanks.
when I think of your geckos, I'm talking top S tier quality geckos, in my opinion. And so did you have that mindset from the very beginning? Like even those first three gargoyles, did you know that you just wanted to buy the best, that you could possibly buy? Or were you just lucky? Or like, what was your strategy? Or did you just kind of stumble into it and adapt quickly?
Yeah, well, I was not able to buy like a $2,000 gargoyle when I first got into it. So, like
Okay.
most people, um, I think I was in like the three to $400 range for each animal. And at that time, I
Hmm.
was like, wow, that's a lot of money for a
Right.
gecko. Like, I hope I don't, I hope they don't die on me. Um, So
In
I
comparison,
definitely
how
did
much does a pitcher plant cost?
um anywhere from the ones that I was working with, probably $50 to 200 max.
Yeah, that's still an expensive plant.
Yeah, but with plants, like I feel you can cultivate them pretty quickly.
Hmm.
I think much faster than you can with geckos.
Yeah, definitely. Very
Yeah.
cool. So, okay, yeah, going back to your strategy then, you had a few $100s to spend. You bought a few geckos. Um, did you know it was going to be a business kind of right away? Did you know that you were going to be breeding, or was that just maybe I'll put a few together, see how they do, and if I like it, I'll go with it?
No, I had no clue it was going to be a business, and I don't even really consider it like a business right now. It's more just a hobby, and I guess a side business.
Yeah,
But initially, I was, just getting geckos left and right for that first year, probably upwards of like 15 of them, 15 gargoyles.
sure.
Um, and yeah, my wife was starting to name them all. And then like I actually started to sell a couple of them, and she got a little bit upset that I had sold her ones that she named. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it took a couple of months for me to realize, yeah, I want to breed these things and really see what I can do. Bring out colors, base colors, or pattern color, which is like my main focus right now.
Yeah. No, and so, okay, you had that vision, right? And you mentioned that your wife was naming them. So kudos to any wives out there or any significant others that just help out with the business in any way or just the hobby in any way, because that could be a challenge in itself, and especially when you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, to have
Yeah,
them on board can be huge, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, kudos there. Um, So, all right, you talked about you're focusing more on pattern color rather than base color. So you see those as obviously two separate things. And
I
genetics
did.
wise, you're focusing in on just the visual expression, correct?
Yes, yeah, more so on the
Of
pattern
pattern color.
color. I mean, I've always had a thing for the yellow gargoyles.
Okay.
Um, I mean, r reds are amazing. I mean, when you open up that tank and they're just like glowing, right? That red glow with the base, it's a sight to see. But I've just always really enjoyed looking at the yellow, the really deep yellow if possible, where it contrasts with the red pattern color.
Yep.
That's what really, that's what gets me going with the gargoyles.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I feel like that's a little bit more rare. And kind of seeing what's out there right now, I don't see a ton of like yellow base gargoyles. I don't know. Do you see a
I
ton?
I know they're more common. I
Yep.
think from what I saw, like the colors that when they're imported back to the States, I don't know how many years ago. I don't know much history on them, to be honest with you.
That's fine.
But
Yeah.
I think they were like mainly yellows or kind of a gray or a muddy brown base color, and then the
Yep.
colors kind of came out from there. That's what I sort of gathered. But you're seeing a lot more, oranges and especially reds on the market right now. But the
Yeah.
yellows just always captivated me.
Yeah, I think those are really underappreciated. So yeah, I definitely love the yellow bases. Like you said, especially when you pair it with that red stripe or red blotch, even the
Yeah,
oranges, they can almost look like they're clearly on fire, like
yeah,
literally on
yeah.
fire with all the different shades of,
Uh-huh.
heat. So very cool. Um, all right, so when you started to sell off some geckos, what was what were you looking for, right? And when you were starting to buy geckos, I should say, is you know, um, obviously I'm looking at people like you to buy from if I'm buying high end. Did you have a favorite place to go shopping or a favorite breeder that you got some of your favorite stock from?
Um, yeah, I would say Rack House. I have two females from Rack House now.
Mm-hmm.
And the one girl that I've been breeding for at least 2 years now just consistently produces the most six stripe offspring. She's from Paul's group three, and I think he's been like
Yeah,
breeding
which
these
is
things for I don't know, like 20, like maybe 20 years of six stripe generations. So I notice that anything I pair her to, as long as the male has a little bit of of six stripe, like you're
mm-hmm.
gonna get offspring that like 90% of them, or if not all of them, have six stripes. I wouldn't say that that one's the most consistent on like the thick, like full, all six stripes, where they're
Yep.
just the whole thing looks basically red.
Okay.
But just having six stripes in general, I think uh, that was a good pickup for me. And when
Oh,
I started my
definitely.
collection was is grabbing some from Rack House.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Paul's got some just ridiculous stuff, and he's been doing this longer than I think any of us, other than like
yeah,
the original OGs. So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, between him and Eclipse Exotics, they really have it kind of dialed in. Um, any other kind of favorite places that you started to get your initial stock from?
Um, I mean, I got some from David at Tiki's.
Hmm.
That one really red one I have with a red base posted in my Instagram a while back. Um, she's from David. I don't know if she's Deadpool or not because I know that
Okay,
that line is really it's everywhere, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
I
that's
don't I
one
don't know
thing
if it's
that's going
actually
to
from
be
Deadpool.
interesting, I think, with certain top tier breeders that we're all trying to get from each other, right? Um, like everybody and their mother has one of David's Deadpool line. I think it's one of the most consistent lines. It's gorgeous.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But I'm purposely trying to stay away from it for the moment. I'm gonna probably buy one this weekend in Tinley. But now that I say that, um, but you know, just because again, I want to have something that's a little bit different, right? I want to if I can
Yeah.
produce a similar quality gecko without having certain bloodlines, and that's just one example because it's the most obvious. Um, that might be
Hmm.
something that I kind of look at with genetics, which is interesting. So,
Hmm.
um, one place that I noticed a lot of people that I've interviewed or just looked at who have really consistent geckos. I might butcher their name, and I probably should have them on the podcast. Is it like triple something?
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about Alex. Yes, so Alex a triple T reptile. I got a good amount of
Yeah,
my
triple
stock
two.
from him. He
Okay,
has I think for the past like 5 years he's been consistently producing six stripes. Um, yeah, I have a good amount from him. He has some really, really nice gargoyles. I haven't really seen him post much recently, but
yeah,
I don't know where exactly his stock came from. But yeah,
but
he produces a lot of
he's doing
six
a great
stripes,
job. I'm gonna have to get him on
and
this podcast and pick his brain too.
yeah,
So,
the
do you
male that I
currently?
bred,
Oh yeah,
sorry, the male that I bred last year, who would produce basically all my offspring. I paired him to four females.
okay,
Um, he's a six stripe, and I think he's the reason why, or not the main reason, but he's a strong contributor as to why, I had over three quarters be full six stripes as the
yeah.
offspring.
And your babies, I mean, at 5, 6, 7 grams, are just. We'll show pictures in just a little bit. Are just blowing up with color, right? And some of them have a price tag to match. I will admit. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm not saying that you don't deserve it. So and a lot of them, yeah, you scroll through the pictures, and I do love that when you post babies for sale, you show exactly who the parents are, and a lot of them are that similar male from him. And I know we'll point it out a little bit later on when I start showing pictures.
Yeah.
Um, but do you have a name for that guy?
You
Did your
know, I
wife name him?
don't. I stopped naming them like about 2 years ago because
Mm,
I don't have that many geckos, but I have too many to name and keep track of their names. And
okay,
also, if I end up selling that gecko, then I'm like, oh, I just lost that name now. And
fair
then my
enough.
wife
I've
would
had that happen.
probably give me a little bit of crap too. So
Yeah, I've got an endless pool of names just because of the way I kind of set it up. With me being Gecko Cove, all my geckos are islands around the world, and I figure there's
okay,
enough islands where I'm not going to have that many geckos in my lifetime. At least I don't believe so. But
we'll see. We'll see.
we'll see. I could always go into not real islands, like islands that are in fantasy or books. So like I got plenty of names I can pull from. I feel like,
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
very
before you know,
cool.
you're gonna have 100 of them. So
And that's something I'm trying to purposefully avoid. But you're probably right. Let's be honest here. How many gargoyles do you currently have? Let's just talk about breeding adults. If you
sure.
had to quantify that.
Yeah, I only have five. I only have five right now.
Five breeding adults. Okay.
Yep.
And that I really wanted to pick your brain about because, you know, you like again you show all the parent pictures and a lot of them are very similar parents, and so that's awesome. I think it's kind of cool that you've been so selective that you're down to five.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. The four of them are like really nice super stripes, the females.
Yeah,
And then one of them is it's this yellow blotch that I got like I think I got it in 2019.
sure.
It's a yellow base reticulated gargoyle, which has these basically it's macaroni color. She actually has a name because she was named and she's still here, and I don't plan on ever selling her.
Fair
But
enough.
she has macaroni and cheese colored blotches on her. So it's really this like yellow orange. I definitely wouldn't call it orange, but on her
Should I pull her
head,
up on Instagram?
yeah, I have her posted somewhere. But on the top of her head,
Yeah,
like between her eyes, more towards her skull, her forehead,
yeah.
she has this yellow, pure yellow blotch dot. It's pure yellow. It's not base color. So when I first got her, my goal was to try to breed her to a yellow base reticulated male with no color in
Okay,
hopes of bringing out a true yellow blotch animal, which I
got it.
don't see any on them. I don't think they exist. Like they can start yellow when they hatch all the way up until they're like 30, 40 grams, and then they'll
Right,
turn orange. Or it's as a light uh, yellow
but
orange.
hers stayed.
Hers stayed just on her head. Um,
Okay.
oh, actually,
Did I pass her?
I mean that's her next to the red one, right in the middle. Yeah,
Oh, where am
right
I?
in, on
Are
your
you going the
mouse.
right direction?
Go.
This one?
Uh,
It's probably a
you gotta
delay.
go.
Go
Oh
back
yeah, right
up.
there. Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's her. She's on the right.
Oh, she's on the right. This one here, right?
No, no, sorry.
Right
She was
here.
on the right in the center photo when you scrolled over it. So down one and to your left. Maybe it's mirrored or something. Right, stop.
Yeah, pass. All right. Here?
No.
Ah!
Oh, that's her. That's stop. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. Your
Don't move.
mouse
Yeah, there's
is
definitely
on
a
her.
delay.
Your mouse is
Okay.
on her. She's yellow.
This
See the
one.
yellow with macaroni and blotch.
Yeah.
Oh
So I'm
no.
guessing, all right.
We're
No?
delayed again. No.
Oh man, I've never had this much trouble on
Anywho,
this.
I
Anywho,
mean,
we'll try
not
to figure
many.
this out.
Yeah, not many people are really into her, to be honest with you. I think
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense. Like
I've got to figure this out.
everyone wants a really red gecko, right? Um,
Right, but I mean, if she's unique in that way, okay. It's weird that okay, you're telling me, is it this one with the little baby on it?
yes, yes,
No,
yes,
because
that's her.
yeah,
That's her.
that's her.
Yep, with the
Okay,
baby on
cool.
it.
Yep,
So I don't know if you can
very
see her
cool.
yellow dot in between her eyes there, kind of
Yeah,
halfway
right
up her
there.
head, but it's pure yellow, and it does not go away when she fires down or up. It's not base color. That's pattern color. Because when she fires up, she turns a yellow. But when she fires down,
Very
she's
cool.
whitish gray. But I was trying for I think about 3 seasons, um, and I had no luck. Like even the babies, like none of them even had the yellow to begin with.
Interesting.
It's more macaroni color, the same color as her current blotches. Which is still really cool and unique, but
Yeah.
um,
Well,
not something that I. Go
like
ahead.
you said, you try to go and reproduce a vision. If it doesn't work, but there's certain geckos that they just mean something special to you. And I'll get off
Yeah,
this for a second. Um, where like my girl Eve, I don't care what happens, how many times I try to upgrade certain lines that I have, she'll just be a pet for my entire life because she
yeah,
was just that special baby. She was her in Hawaii will be here forever because they were my first two geckos that I knew I was going to keep. They were going to start it all, and they just mean a little bit more than any of the other geckos.
yep, yep. It's your pet.
So it's a pet. So even when we do breed them, so very cool. Well, yeah, macaroni. I like that. So, and then okay, you only have so macaroni. I'm guessing is not breeding.
I
Is
know
she
she is
part of the
breeding.
five? Oh, she is
Yeah,
breeding.
yeah, she's
Okay,
part of the five.
she's part of the
She
five.
is 50. No, she was born in or hatched in 2014, so she's 10 years old.
Okay, so with the quality that you have, what made you decide to shrink down to five? Is it just time that you have at home, or you just only want to deal with like the best of the best that you can get? What's your strategy there?
A little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, the gargoyles have been pretty productive for me.
Okay,
I used to feed a whole lot of crickets, and I
yeah,
think that really paid off for the egg production. So I'd get anywhere from, I think on average, like 9 to 10 babies a season for each female. So
it's a
yeah,
lot.
that's for four females last season. That's almost 40 babies. Um, so it's a lot of work, and I don't have a ton of space. I live in California, so
Yeah,
real estate's a little, little pricey here. And
is
then
it?
I don't. And I don't hire anyone to come feed my animals. I got two kids at home and one more on the way. It's just it's a hobby and I
Congratulations.
feed at night. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and I can relate. We're in a very similar situation where I've got two little ones, and my family would love me to have a third, especially if it was a girl. We could guarantee that.
Yes.
Um, so it doesn't work that way, guys. I
Didn't
still
for us, yeah.
50-50 chance. Yeah, but no, and that's kind of where I really want to have you on because I sort of see my vision of where I want to take Gecko Cove to right where you're sort of at now because I look at
Yeah,
other
yeah.
breeders that are a little bit bigger, and I respect them and I think they're doing great work. This is never going to be a full time job for me. I know that,
Hmm.
and so to even consider having 50, 100, you know, potential geckos, even like if I had 40 breeders, like you said, they can produce quite a bit. Um, I don't know if I want that many babies. I mean, I just had my very first season, and I had what I think 13 eggs only, right between four females. So it was their first season. Didn't
Hmm.
get a ton of eggs out of all of them. One of them produced most of them actually, and if they all end up producing like her, which this season they are starting to,
Hmm.
it can be quite a bit of work, like you said. Just the babies alone take just as long as the adults do. I just fed everything before we
Yeah.
started recording, and to put in 1 cup of food, right? I don't care if it's the small cup or the large cup; it's still a cup of food, right?
Yeah, no, it takes up a lot of time. I think people don't realize that until they're actually doing it, right? Is that
Right.
even feeding just, like 40 babies, it's time consuming. That's like for me, it's like at least an hour or hour to 3 hours a week, probably closer
Yeah.
to three, just feeding those. And maybe I don't, house them in I don't have the slide drawers.
Okay.
Um, I just have them in like little Sterilite containers. But yeah, it takes up a lot of time for sure. And for
Yeah.
people who aren't doing it full
Well,
time, it's like,
I know not everybody loves them, but I think this even helped me speed up time. I have these shoe drop boxes that everybody has. I tried them out. They
uh-huh.
work perfectly for me in my situation.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I noticed just looking behind you, right? Um, those are gorgeous enclosures. Do you mind if I ask where you got those?
Yeah, no, of course. I got them from Tamara Designs. Yeah, I think you guys have seen them on Instagram.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
PVC. They're amazing. I have full bioactive right now, and there's like LEDs in them and everything. They're a safe spacer, uh, space saver. Sorry, getting late
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It
So
is.
they're stackable. Um,
Where's your espresso drink? Were we
right.
drinking water? What's wrong with us, man? Yeah, and I love the backgrounds on them. Are those built in?
Yeah, yeah, it's printed on, and I'm really glad I got them because they allow the feeding ledges to stick on well. I got these really nice feeding ledges from Goliath Reptiles.
Yeah,
Jay, I think you had
Jay's awesome.
a
I had him on a
a
few
chat
few
with him.
episodes ago.
Yeah, he makes some really cool only makes a lot of really cool 3D printed stuff. But I got these feeding ledges, and the cups slide in and they slide out. And then they have
Yep.
each 3 or 2 suction cups depending on the size, and they stick great to anything that has print over the PVC.
Very cool. Yeah, have you noticed that they don't stick sometimes nearly as well on just the really slick PVC? Or
Um,
do they work pretty well on that too?
I had some older enclosures that were PVC from like years ago, and I could not
Yep.
get anything to stick on them. I had to use like they had to stick on the door, the acrylic
Yeah.
door. So with
No,
these,
that's fair.
it's such a luxury because I hate putting it on the door. It gets, a little gross and
It
they
doesn't
step in
look
their
as
food.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're just going to dirty the windows anyway. But yeah, and I think it looks really awesome. Just the uniformity of those. I think one other reason why I kind of want to stay small like you are is I can spoil them, right? So
Yep.
one
Yeah.
one thing my wife says about having, we stop at 2 kids, we can spoil them a little bit more, right? Because kids
hmm
aren't cheap. And so, um, if I stop at, maybe 10 geckos that I want to breed, which is double what you have right now. Eventually, I could still, buy the nice enclosures, or maybe I'll get a sponsorship. Who knows? With this podcast, I'm
Let me
open to
know. Yeah.
sponsorships, guy. If
That'd
anybody
be
has a
that'd be
connection
pretty
here,
cool.
I,
Yeah.
I can be sold. I've said that before. Uh, so,
You're doing the right
but yeah,
things. Yeah.
try it here. So, but yeah, no, those are absolutely gorgeous. And do you have a mist system hooked up to them, or do you spray them by hand?
I do. I don't use it right now. I just got
Okay.
these enclosures about 3 months ago, so I'm still kind of trying to figure out how much moisture is needed or not. So I've been hand misting for the entirety of it. But
Very
I
cool.
eventually will hook up the mist king to it.
Once you
It
know
saves so much
exactly.
time. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Now, okay, if you don't mind me asking a little bit more about how you're keeping them. So, do you rotate? Obviously, with 5 adults, do you have 2 males, 1 male that you're
Yeah. So
using
this
right
year
now?
I have 2 males. I
Very
have
cool.
that male I got from Triple Two, the six stripe. He is with 3 females, three really nice stripes.
Okay.
So six stripes, and then I have uh, originally I started in it's called the Ahi line. It,
Okay.
it, I don't know if it's still like a true. I don't know what the requirements are to start a line, but it was a red base six stripe that I got from a breeder named Creatures by Soon. I don't think she
Okay.
breeds anymore, but everyone loved him, and he produced some pretty nice stuff. So he was Ahi. I named him Ahi, and so he was my Ahi line.
Nice. I
Um,
love it.
yeah. So
Just because I think
his
the definition of a line is you just have to be, producing babies and be confident enough to say this is my line, right? You
I
got to be at
guess so.
least a little
Yeah.
bit cocky with it.
I mean,
So,
there's a lot of different lines out there, and some that,
there are.
might not deserve a name necessarily, and maybe that's mine. I don't know, but I haven't bred my Ahi line because I actually traded Ahi, the male, to Alex at Triple Two a couple of years back,
Oh, okay.
because I created a couple of males and then actually bred that male, and he created an offspring, and now that offspring is finally breeding this year.
Oh, cool. So
So
you
it's
got you
it's
got an offspring back that you've raised up. That's pretty sweet.
no,
Oh, am I getting it wrong?
he's a grandchild of Ahi that I bred here.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
he's now finally ready to breed, and he'll be breeding with a rack house female that
Cool.
I have finally that have been growing up for like 3 years now, and then
Very cool.
the macaroni, the blotch.
That's awesome. And now, do you keep them together in groups, or do you rotate the males?
I keep them together in groups. I keep them together year round.
Okay.
If it's a new pairing, I'll pair them in the winter, but for the
Sure.
most part, I right now I have a one to it's actually a 1-2 with that triple two male because one of the females got a little beat up. That's the
Okay.
price you pay is that you put them together. Some of the females really bite into each other.
Yeah, and that's where it's interesting. Talking this through, I would love to just say I would love to do groups, and there's nothing wrong with it. Obviously, a lot of great breeders, including yourself, do it. Um, I just am, I've talked to a few people where they're like, you know what, if you can get a 1-to-1 to work, I haven't heard any major downsides. I'm open to listen to them, but, I've seen people just have a pairing, and if they have a big enough enclosure, it just works long term where you never have to separate them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
I
that's
could see
sort
that.
of my vision of where I want to be. I want to, have, each one have a 18, 18, 24, or maybe a 24 cube, and just have 5 or 6 cubes. That would
Yeah.
be kind of my dream.
It also makes it easier for, finding eggs or figuring out whose eggs are whose.
Right. And do you have a trick for that since you do groups? If anybody else is
Um,
doing groups out
I
there,
mean, I have a
or do you
lay
just watch
box.
their cycle?
I have a lay box. I know when they laid last, and then I always check them every night. Um, about an hour or 2 hours after lights go out.
Yep.
And I think like 90% of the eggs, I knew who laid them because they were already starting to dig, and it was their time.
Yep.
But there was a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 clutches towards the end where I had no clue who they were. Um, so
Yep.
I mean I posted them. I think some of them are actually on my Morph Market page right now. Is that it could be one of these two.
Yeah.
So here you go. I mean that's
And
better than what
that
some of the
happens.
breeders do. Some of the breeders don't even really tell you. They say, oh, this is uh, Daredevil offspring.
Yep.
Who's a male, right? That's all they know.
Right.
So
Yeah. And I appreciate that you say it could be one of these two females, and we could make an educated guess. But
yeah.
because I know that Gargoyle Queen does that, with her groups.
Hmm.
I'll look at some of her babies, and you'll see it'll be because the lineage is all written out with hers, and it'll be this male for sure, one of these two females, And I'm like, I love the transparency is fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
especially when you're spending the kind of money, that people are asking. If you're spending $2,000 plus, at least be honest with me. Tell me you don't know. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of
So,
times, like the babies look pretty similar, in the beginning, right? Like if
oh
your
yeah,
male is yellow base, but one of the females is really red and the other one's yellow, well, sometimes they look the same in the beginning. You can't tell. You really can't. So,
right,
but even if you grew them out and one had a red base, you still can't say that, oh, that's for sure from that female because two yellows can't throw a red.
yeah, no, that is true.
So,
And I almost wish it was sort of like human beings, where both my kids came out looking just like me. Evolutionarily, it's supposed to look like the father, at least initially, because we know who the mother is, obviously, with human beings.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's
so,
funny.
but very cool. Now, you said do you use Jay's lay boxes too? I know
For
he
my
prints. I was
gargoyles,
talking to him.
I don't, but that's because I haven't. I've only used them on my leechies so far, and I just got them a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
What
cool.
I usually do is I have them lay in the medium, and I've used anything from peat moss, with or just standard bark you get from Home Depot. And my new thing now is the what are they called? The coconut chips. They have a name. I
Yeah,
forgot
the
what they're
Repti
called.
chip.
Yeah, yeah, Repti chips. I've been using those, and
That's
they're
what I
they're
use.
they're pretty good. They're pretty good. They don't mold as much. I've had some issues with mold, more
Mm-mm.
so with bark.
Yeah, I've used. So right now I'm using Repti chip, and then I also mix in the. It's the same company, but basically a coconut um, core. Like the really fine stuff.
Uh-huh.
So what I find is that when you mix the two together, um, it holds in the moisture a little bit better because it'll
Mm-hmm.
still drain because of the bigger chips, and it won't just saturate. Because I find if you just use the straight, like blocks of the coconut kind of powderish stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about?
It's just too much moisture. Yeah.
Well, sometimes too much moisture, and sometimes the moisture just sits on top. Like it doesn't even penetrate, right? Because
Oh
it's so
yeah.
dense.
You have to like wet it
Um,
first when you get it in, versus just
you
tossing
do.
it in there dry. Yeah.
Absolutely. But the mixture together seems to be working well. And so,
Nice.
one trick I picked up from another breeder on the podcast is they just mound all of like most of the substrate into one corner, a little bit higher, so that I only have to dig in one corner. And that's worked super well for me. Do you just have it
Oh,
evenly throughout?
I do have it evenly because it shows me like, somebody dug last night or someone's starting to dig when it's all messed
Sure.
up versus I try to pat it down nicely. I mean,
Yeah,
OCD, I guess.
I do that too, but I find that like it'll also kind of create a humidity, like a humid corner. right? Even though the enclosures are pretty big.
Yeah.
So it kind of has a dry corner if they want to get away from the humidity,
Hmm.
where I barely ever spray. I'll spray the walls and then I'll really soak that one corner.
Huh.
Um, and so little things that I do that seem to be working. But yeah,
And you can
so
tell
otherwise
that
I'd
they
have,
actually that they were
oh yeah,
digging.
absolutely. Well, and
Nice.
like you said, I'll usually come in here after the lights go out, just to do a little bit of maintenance, and
Yeah.
usually I'll see them digging at that moment. I've caught a few of them in the act a few times.
Uh-huh.
But what also I'll do is, like you said, I'll either pat it down so that like I know it's perfect for me, and then if I see any disruption, I know that they did something, and I'll start digging. Or what I'll do is I'll actually just stick my finger in and make a little hole right in the center of it. And
Uh-huh.
if there's no hole when I get back there, I know they've been digging in it.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
Nice.
little things, little tips and tricks.
Hmm.
So very cool. Um, Awesome. Well, so okay, you've got your pairings. How often would you switch out your males and females? Because even the girl that I got from you, right? Her mother, you were selling or trying to sell for a while, and I'm glad you didn't sell the mom because it's producing absolute fire right now. Your girl Electra.
Was I trying to
So
sell her? I don't even remember that.
you were, yeah, that was the first time I reached out to you. Was you had three females, three older females for sale. She was the one in the middle, and you had her like original picture, where she's just glowing. And
Okay.
I reached out, and didn't have anywhere near the money you were asking, and she's worth every penny you asked.
I'm glad I
Um,
didn't sell her then. I'm
yeah,
glad nobody
exactly.
picks her up.
Nobody picked her up, and yeah. So that was the very first time I ever reached out to you, was asking
Yeah.
you about Electra, and then I remember reaching back out a few more times about babies, and when you showed me the picture of the two girls, which we didn't know they were girls at the time, um, and you showed me that the mom was the one that I was looking at originally, I'm like, I got to get one of them. I got to get
Yeah.
one of them.
Is
They're
she
gorgeous.
looking kind of orangish now? Orangish red?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. She's definitely. You want me
Looking
to
like
pull her out?
mom. Yeah, I sure. I mean, or if you got a
Let me
picture on
pull her out.
Instagram or something. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, actually, I think. Well, no, I want to pull her out, and if you still want to see pictures, I'll show you some. So I think it's always kind of fun to show you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I named her Tiga. Watch, she'll be fired down right now.
Yeah, probably. Especially the lights on.
Yep. But she's usually fired up, actually.
Well, that's good.
And again, I'm going to eat it saying that. Yep, she's fired down. Look at
Oh,
that.
of course. Well, she'll be
Of
white and
course.
orange then, right?
Yeah, but even that, you can still see
Oh yeah, she's looking good.
she's
Nice.
looking awesome.
It's a little
So
blurry on my end, but that's because of the video
yeah,
quality
that's
at
because
the
of that.
moment.
But very cool.
Awesome.
I'll show you some other pictures. Um, but she's looking great, and I'm
Close to
actually going
breeding,
to
huh?
pair her next season. She should be ready to go,
Okay.
and I'm really
Yeah.
excited. I'm going to pair her to a really nice orange blotch that comes from two striped parents, from Cosmic
Oh,
Exotics.
interesting. A blotch that came
So
from two stripes.
yep, blotch that came from two stripes.
Cool. Cool.
Here, actually, I'll just pull up my website and show you this real quick. See if you think this is a good idea. This is what other people told me to do, and I'm listening to them.
Okay.
Uh,
We'll see if the delay actually is okay on this one.
yeah, let's try it. So, I've got a new website, Gecko Cove. I think I've told a few times during this not this exact podcast, but one of the recordings.
Nice.
Let's see. Screen, Gecko Cove. There we go. All right. Now, can you see it?
Yep.
Perfect. So if I go back to my holdbacks, so these are my holdbacks. That's her fired down again.
Nice.
And you can see here the orange. This is actually an older picture, but it's even brighter.
Yeah, she looks a lot like her mom.
Hey, that's what I want to hear, my friend. You're making my night. And so,
At least with
yeah,
the color for sure. Yeah.
I'll take that. Yeah. And I know she doesn't have as thick as stripes as her mom, but I'll take it. So this guy, Bear, here is the male I'm looking to pair with her.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So you can see he is neon orange,
Yeah.
and yeah, just came from two striped parents. The parents are down here. So you've got Arum and Ruby. So kind of a
Uh-huh.
unique pairing. I don't know. So we'll see what the babies look like. But he's
Yeah,
got
you'll get
coverage
a
all the way across.
probably get a combo of stripes and blotches and with pretty solid orange for
Yep.
sure.
And I feel like orange is getting a little bit more popular now that red's getting pretty saturated. That might be the next frontier.
I think you're right. It's also I believe it's kind of hard to isolate just orange. It's
Hmm.
like because you're basically like stacking the color over, right? So
Exactly.
if you're getting like a you breed two really orange high pattern geckos, high color pattern geckos. I feel
Yep.
like if you get like a super form of that version, it's just gonna be almost dark orange, which looks red. So
Yeah. No, and that's the risk you kind of run. And
yeah,
so, what's the solution to that? Can you find? I mean, I don't think
yeah.
I've seen yellow pattern. To kind of dilute it.
I've tried.
Do you,
I don't know if it's possible.
so yeah, maybe. I mean, the one thing I do have is actually going back to my website real quick. I'll show you this girl. Her orange is super light. It's almost yellowish.
Hmm.
Um, and
Contender,
that's my
huh?
girl Hawaii. So here, let me go back breeding geckos right now. You can see right here Hawaii. She's probably the closest I've seen to a yellow saturation.
Oh, how old is
But
she
this is
there?
a so she is 2.5 in that picture. So that was her as a
Okay.
baby.
Uh-huh.
This is her at about a year and a half before she bred. And ever since she bred, she lightened up into a yellow. So going back to this picture here, this was just probably about 2 months ago that I took this
Yeah.
photo.
Nice. Yeah, she's definitely got
So
like a gray, light yellow base probably with some orange stripes, light orange
yep,
stripes.
and I paired her with Praline here. So I'm hoping to see some nice six stripe babies from the two of them. I've
Yeah.
already got 4 eggs incubating right now.
Oh, nice.
Um, and so yeah, and then I've got my red pair here with Eve and Raffles. They've given me 3 eggs so far that are good. And
Hmm.
then these two are not breeding. These two just paired up, and I'm doing a breeder loan with Southern Girl Exotics for Delirium here. He is neon reddish orange, like lava color in person.
Oh
I
yeah.
cannot wait to see what his babies turn into. But yeah, so that's what I got going on right now.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll get off that. But yeah, so the yellow, we'll see. We'll see if I can pull something with Hawaii. Maybe all those babies, since I'm doing a red to her, might come out, bright orange. Who knows? Be
Yeah.
kind of
I
fun.
mean, you can have to grow them all out and, and see for yourself.
Yeah.
Or you'll know if they're like kind of an orange red already, then they're not going to lighten up, right? The base color might lighten and make it look lighter, but that pattern color is only going to
Yep.
get darker, in my opinion, and experience.
I agree.
Yeah.
So okay, going back to the girl you sold me. All right.
Yeah.
So when I purchased her, obviously as a baby, she wasn't like your top tier. I didn't spend 2 plus, 3 plus $1,000 on her.
Hmm.
In all transparency here. Okay,
Yeah.
you gave me a great deal on her. I won't say how much on the podcast. But you've got, even with your high end pairs, not all the babies come out great. And a lot of breeders that I talk to
Hmm.
say that it doesn't matter. Buy the babies that don't have the great visuals. If you can produce absolute fire with those. What's your take on that? And what's your strategy, even if you believe in that?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, I will say that I haven't bred enough gargoyles to for sure say, oh yeah, like you need to avoid these ones, or you can definitely get away with just breeding the lesser offspring of really nice parents.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so I've always, my view on it is I try to buy what I can, the best I can afford. And if that means I only have two female breeders, then that's all I have. I don't really want to get a mid-tier one and then mess
Hmm.
around with having offspring that are kind of harder for me to sell. Um, And that's just my take on it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as like um, you know, pairing two really nice geckos together and the offspring, I would say about a quarter of them are going to be, and this is what I've based on my experience and based on what everyone says, online
Yeah.
on Facebook and everything.
Exactly.
Uh, you look at the
It
two
says it on the
geckos,
internet. It has to be true.
right? Yeah. So you look at the two geckos, the two parents, and then about a quarter of them are going to be better than both the parents.
Uh-huh.
50% of them are going to end up about the same. And then a quarter of them will be about, lesser than the parents. And I can say for the most part that rings true for overall looking at, all the ones that I bred. I think that rings true with my animals at least with gargoyles. I can't say the
Yeah.
same about Chihuahua or Leachianas. But yeah, with gargoyles,
It's got
uh,
that bell curve.
yeah, definitely a bell curve. I am someone who believes that the expression that they currently show on them, the pattern color,
Yep.
I would choose that gecko over a gecko that has less pattern from two parents that had a lot of pattern, personally.
Okay.
Um, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of experience, years and years of breeding hundreds of geckos. But for me, I've seen that, you look at the parents, and for the most part, they look like somewhat of their parents. And my hopes is to get ones that look better than their parents, have more color, whether it's, a
Sure.
deeper red or uh, deeper base color in the yellows, or just overall more pattern color coverage in the animal.
Which I think for a lot of people who keep way more geckos than you and I, those are the ones they hoard, right? If it's better than what they're producing, or what they're producing is better than what they have currently.
Hmm.
Not that they can keep all of them, but those are very rare, and that's why when I look at Morph Market, I think it makes sense now talking to you why you have some of the best babies out there is because you only want to keep 5 geckos, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
keep 300. And so you sell off some of the most amazing babies I've seen on Morph Market. Um, and so, I mean, that sort of makes sense to me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a limit to how many you can keep. I've always gone for the most high end I can afford, and I will keep the best ones that I produce 90% of the time. Unless I know that I'm not
Right.
going to use them, or if the market's really good for them, and someone wants to pay me $8,000 for a gargoyle. Okay, then that's
Right.
that makes sense.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay,
But
how
I
many out of the years you've been doing this, right?
mhm.
How many babies do you hold back each year?
2022, I held back just one. It
Okay.
was the best one I had ever produced, and I said I'm not gonna sell her. I'm gonna raise her up to be a breeder, and she
Yeah.
looks like six stripe, full red, yellow base that I like, really thick
Sure.
laterals. She's I think almost 2 years old now.
Okay.
So maybe pair her when she's 2.5, but she's 50 grams.
Yeah.
2023, I probably have about five or six, maybe a little bit more personal holdbacks,
Okay.
because I realize that like the geckos I have they're really nice, right? The breeders that I currently have, but the ones I'm
Right.
producing are like leagues better in my opinion.
Mhm.
So if I hold those ones back, um, and obviously I'm gonna have to diversify some lines here. I can't just like pair the offspring to offspring.
No,
Um,
no, not completely.
um, so if I hold those ones back and do some trading or or buy some really nice ones too, I think that's gonna take at least my gargoyle game to the next level of what I currently am at.
Yeah.
To where like Sam he has some really really nice ones. He bought up pretty much everyone's best. I
Yeah.
know Phil Tremper has some cool
His
like
stuff's
head
nuts.
pattern on his Gargs. So hoping for something like that because they're starting to come out in my offspring, just head pattern, the
Okay.
pattern color.
And I've asked a bunch of breeders this, and I don't think a lot of them really have an answer. Maybe you don't have an answer, and that's totally fine. Just tell me if you don't. But like, do you have a theory on head pattern? on if people are trying to look for certain traits in their geckos, or is it a certain pairing type? Is there any kind of recipe in your mind, or is it just luck at this point?
I really have no clue.
No,
All
that's
I can
fair.
say is the offspring that I made last year that do have a good amount of head color, pattern head color. Like my male has a little bit, so he obviously
Hmm.
produced all of them. And then the females either have a lot of body pattern color or like Electra, she does have head color too. It's faded. Can't see it anymore. When she was a baby, you could see, dots of it and she has some. It's like maybe it's a gene, I don't know, or maybe it's a just
Hmm.
overall gene of pattern color being spread everywhere throughout the body. Um, but I've noticed that, if they have it, they have it, and they'll possibly pass on the offspring. And my goal is to, you know, keep breeding them and getting ones that have more and more head color as well as body coverage, right? Like I'm not focusing mainly on head color. It's just everyone's doing that right now.
Yeah.
But mine is I want to have like the lats so thick, that lateral stripe on the side. I want that to be so thick that it basically just blends in with the dorsal and side stripe.
Yeah.
So
No, man, just a single stripe, right? Just a
yeah,
band. Yeah, we got to come up with some fancy name for it.
but I'm sure
But yeah,
that'll
I think
yeah. I've like once a gecko has that like and all you're producing is that, I feel like that's gonna get a little boring after a while. So I don't know. I don't know what
definitely.
the goal is after that.
Yeah, and you know, that's one thing that I get asked a bunch is, well, what happens when we're done with red? What happens when we're done with this? What happens when we're done with that? And I get the question. It's not a bad question, but it's a silly question to me because there's always something else, right? There's always something else, and they're so polymorphic, and trends change and things pop up. Um, I don't think people even thought of head color. I don't know. Again, I've only been in the industry for what 3 years now, but I mean, was head color even talked about 5, 6 years ago?
Not
Maybe for Phil, but not by
I
many
wasn't
people.
thinking about it. No. I think what's
No.
unique about gargoyles, at least with the New Caledonian geckos that are commonly bred, is that like you look at crested gecko, you look at leachianis, they have like specific like recessive traits, right?
Hmm.
Like axanthics or melanistics, right? So there's a lot
Yep.
of emphasis on those genes. And with gargoyles, I've really only seen a couple people say, "Oh, this we have this one that's really light." I think Tiki's has one, and Rack House has
Yep.
one where they say it might be like, well, it's not albino. I don't even know what they said it might be.
Amelanistic or something.
AML.
Yeah, potentially.
So it's pretty exciting to see what uh, another form of gargoyles possibly coming to the market.
Yeah.
That would be cool to see versus just concentrating on
And
red because that's what most people are focusing on.
absolutely. And I think, like you said, there's the talks about the AMLs potentially coming out, and you know, I hope that pans out. I really hope it does. I think that'd be a cool thing to add in. But just like with the crested gecko industry, they were in the same boat, and then all of a sudden, Xanthic and Lily White came out, and look at how that just blew up, and now they're finding more and more. I think
Hmm.
once the gates open, and now it's going to take a little bit longer because gargoyles, A, don't produce nearly as fast, and B, they're not as popular. So I think we've got a little bit of a safety buffer just in those two facts there with gargoyles.
Hmm.
Um,
With
but,
compared to crested, yeah,
compared to cresteds,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Um, but people won't, they won't tell me exactly what they know, right? For good reason, and I'm glad they don't, because I don't want to keep a secret. But they'll be like, "Trust me, I've seen some things. Oh, I've been to this big facility, and there's stuff out there. Don't worry about it." And I'm like, "That's cool.
Oh,
I'm glad you're telling me at least that." But that doesn't. So I think things will come out in the future, but I
oh,
can't say what they are because I don't know.
good to hear. That's cool.
Yeah, right. It's cool to hear, but I don't. people don't share exactly what those things are with me because I think
Yeah,
obviously because I have this platform, I don't want to spill the beans and piss people off. I want to make people happy and bring them together. So
yeah. I mean, hopefully it's all like
very fun.
a healthy new gene expression,
Wow,
right?
that's
Versus like the super caps. Like,
yeah.
I think they don't have like not big enough nostril holes or something. Some of them do. I can't say all, but that's what I've
Right.
heard.
Well, the first ones that came out didn't, and everybody got their pitchforks out, and hey, if you breed them, you're canceled, kind of thing. And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden, people kind of kept going. Well, these came out with bigger nostrils, so is that okay, guys?
yeah.
We fixed the problem here. We diversified the gene pool a little bit. I don't know. Don't know. And actually, that's one thing that I appreciate about gargoyles, and I don't know if you feel this way, is did you ever breed crested geckos?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it? Like,
Um,
are you still doing it?
no, yeah, I don't do it anymore. I used to.
Okay.
So I've bred cresteds, I've bred Chihuahua, I've bred gargoyles, and I've only bred leechies for 1 year now. Um,
Okay.
I really enjoyed Chihuahua, though. I don't know if a lot of people know, but I recently got out of them and traded or sold most of my collection away.
Oh,
The cricket
yeah, you had some gorgeous
consumption
ones.
is insane, and I always was my first and foremost, I want to make sure they're healthy animals, right? So
Hmm.
I noticed that they love crickets, and especially the adults, they devour crickets, and the adults, especially the breeding ones, don't really care for the roaches, the dubia roaches.
Sure. Yep.
So if you've ever kept crickets, they stink, they're loud. You have to buy them every at least couple weeks, so every month if you're keeping thousands of them.
Hmm.
I was just getting kind of overwhelmed by it. So I decided, wasn't in my best interest right
Wasn't
now,
your
or
thing.
or the animals, for me to keep them at that point. So um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
like you said, I mean, it can be a lot. And if you have a smaller collection, it's not super expensive, but
yeah.
you know, every little bit adds up. But yeah, you had some gorgeous ones. So whoever you sold or traded to definitely lucked out there because again, there's a trend with you with quality, and I really really respect that. I admire that a lot. And you just said, did you just say earlier? I'm going to rewind the tape here that you've only been breeding leashes for a year now.
Yep, yep. I bred. The first time was last season. Produced.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty lucky and made about 10 or 12 babies, I think, closer to 12.
And okay, you have A-males, or not A-males, melanistic
Melanocytes.
ones, right?
I do,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I bred some. I bred I think about eight melanistic babies I made last season. So I know some
Very
people were
cool.
like, wait, because my one female produced 8 babies, and Jay was telling me, dude, F
For
you,
a first
man.
season, that's
Like
insane.
that's
Exactly.
crazy. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I got a good female. But I got like the majority of my lychees from Shane over at Lychee Garden. He has some really good stuff, as everybody knows, and he's a good friend of mine.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. Lychees, I would love to kind of learn more about them. I know the basics about lychees, but I feel like that's a whole other subculture that I'm not even tapped into yet. Of like, who are the big people? I know the people here in Chicagoland that I'm close to, but there's so many more people that I'm like, because you go. I'm gonna go to Tinley this weekend. When this is dropping, it'll
Uh-huh.
be Tinley weekend,
Oh,
and
nice. Okay.
there's so many. I would say it's Crested Geckos have the most.
Uh-huh.
And maybe I'm wrong with this, but I feel like lychees are number two. I see more lychees,
Hmm.
and then maybe it's Chihuahua and gargoyles are third and fourth fiddle.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
You know, so but yeah, didn't they come out with an albino lychee too somewhere?
Yes, I think
That
who was it? Harkido? I think Harkido has like an albino line going.
yeah.
And then I know Anthony from Rack City Geckos produced some really light baby. I don't know if it's AML or
Albino.
albino or whatever, but that thing's really cool too.
Yeah, the lychees on his page are just insane.
Yeah, yeah, the True Color line.
So yeah, so cool. All right, real quick, going back though. well, let's talk about your leachies real fast.
Sure.
So, what are the locales? Like, what did you buy into, and how many of those do you have right now going?
Yeah, so I didn't really go for the locales. I kind of went for like the GT melanistics, and then the the kind of high pattern, high color mutts. So
Nice.
I've
Okay.
got animals from I got animals from Anthony in Rack City. I got a few from Palm at Empire State Giants. He's kind of a smaller leachy breeder, but he produces like some of the best stuff, but nobody knows about him because he also can't take a
Yep.
picture to save his life.
Ah, don't you love
Yeah,
that?
sorry, Tom, if you're if you're listening in, but he knows it. He knows he can't
Yeah.
take a picture. But he
Yeah, that's
produces
okay.
some really nice, just high color, high pattern lychees.
Yeah.
Got a couple from Steve Simelli at Leaping Lychees, and then
Very
some
cool.
from Doug at Ridiculous Racks. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are the two things I work with is the high pattern, high colors. I have a couple, grow up pairs of those, and then um, the I'm hoping to produce some nice high color melanistics.
Okay. Very cool. So would you consider, are you trying to like, and I try, but would you say you have more leeches? How many are you working with right now?
I think I do have more lychees than I do gargoyles actually. And yeah, this has
Yeah.
happened over the past about 3 years. I really
Yeah.
started to get into it. But I've like gargoyles, I've bred them traditionally about 2.5 to 3 years old, the females.
Yep.
Male sometimes even earlier. I've thrown in ones upwards of like a year and a quarter, a year and a half, and they do fine for me. Yeah, they'll take a
Yeah.
beating sometimes, but they get the job done.
They're
And
the size, they're good to go.
what's works for
They're
me, as
scrappy.
long as they're long enough. That's what one of the older breeders told me. It's not really weight, it's as long as they're long enough
Hmm.
to, to do the job and pin the female down.
Yeah. Oh,
With
that makes
gargoyles,
sense.
with leechies, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. It's getting late.
No, no, you're good.
Yeah, I think I have two breeding pairs. Actually, probably only one breeding pair this season.
Hmm.
And then the rest are
Okay.
grow ups. So I don't think I'll be producing
And they
much
take
this
a while
year.
to grow. So
Yeah.
they take what, 3 years minimum on average?
Yeah. I think males you could probably pair at 2.5 to 3. But
Yeah.
females, I've heard you should wait till they're older. I paired my current female that made like 8 babies last year. I paired her a little bit after 2.5 years because she
Cool.
was big. She was like 240, 50 grams. Um, and
Yep.
then she did great producing and she's still growing too. So, but
Very
they're
nice.
they're they're rough breeders for sure. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen, I know.
different, whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
They'll beat the crap out of each other. Where I know you said earlier you've had a few scuffles with the gargoyles. I haven't had, knock on wood here. I have not had any damage, like true damage, with any of my gargoyles so far.
It's probably
Um,
because you have pairs.
you
You
know,
have 1 to 1.
yeah,
I think
that's
the
that's what I'm
females
thinking.
tend to beat up on each other more so. And there's usually
Yes.
one dominant female that just whoops everyone's ass. So,
Sounds about right. So my the only time I ever made a huge mistake was I put two females together, my first two, Eve and Hawaii. I got my first, 12 or yeah, 18, 18, 24. Got my first one of those.
okay.
And I'm thinking, there's all this space. I'll put in all these different hiding spots. They were both almost 2 years old, right?
Uh-huh.
Not quite. They were just almost 2 years old. I'm like, oh, they're pretty much full grown. They're both around 45 grams. And put them in together. Next day, there's Eve with Hawaii's tail, in her mouth. And I'm like, no, there goes that. And I was actually glad it wasn't the other way around because Eve's, base color.
Yeah.
And it worked out. So I just separated them. Never again. Never shall they meet ever again.
Oh, was
So
there a male in there too?
no, no, no male. I
Yeah.
just was like, being dumb, playing around with space, and I was like, you know what? Big enclosure. I could move these guys over here and upgrade these ones, and because at that time they were all grow outs. I had no breeders.
Yeah.
And so you
I,
live and learn,
I've
and
had
you
that
lose a
issue
tail.
too. And when I first started breeding, I was like, I'm gonna pull my male and I'll let the two females kind of just live in the same enclosure over the winter. Then I started
Yep.
to notice that, the bigger one is bullying the little one, so or the younger, the
Hmm.
smaller one. So separated from there. But I've also noticed that um, when they're either, females together or, a breeding group, that you can't have one high point in the tank. Because if you do, that
Hmm.
the biggest, most alpha female, whatever you want to call her, she'll sit up there
Yeah.
and she'll just, you know, go after the other
Rule.
ones, especially the females. Like yeah, it's bad. So
It's
I have to make
interesting. It's
sure.
it's kind of like birds. It's like a pecking order, and then they
Yeah.
physically the highest one. If you're ever at Petco or any of the places that sell birds, and you watch the parakeets, you can always tell the dominant one by which one's up top.
Okay. I mean, they're related to reptiles, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah, according to Clint's reptiles, birds are reptiles, and I've had many debates with people about that. So kind of
Nice.
fun. Um, So, okay, I love that kind of advice. What other advice would you give small breeders? Is there anything that you do that you find just works for you really well? Because a lot of the people I have on here are people that produce a lot of quality animals, but quantity as well. Obviously, you're a little more niche where I want to be.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything that you've learned over the last few years with gargoyles, the way you have them set up, or any mistakes you've made uh, that you could lay on us? Good
Yeah, yeah.
information.
I'd say wait till your females are as big as you can get them, right? I mean, not
Okay.
saying you have to wait 5 years till they're 80 grams, right? But the bigger females tend to do a lot better with breeding. So
Yep.
I don't think I've ever bred a female Garg under when I first paired them under 55 or 60 grams. Um, Bugs help significantly if you can feed them bugs, especially when they're younger. Whether that's
Yep.
zooby or crickets or whatever you want to feed them, I'm not sure. Um, it just their growth skyrockets, right? If you feed them Pangea for
Hmm.
their whole life, I just don't think they're going to be as big overall. And then bugs significantly increase the fertile egg laying production in my experience. Like,
Hmm.
because I haven't been able to feed as many bugs as I don't have crickets anymore. So I just finally got back in
Okay.
getting some roaches after not having crickets for uh, 4 or 5 months or so. Um,
Sure.
so hopefully things pick up, but I'm noticing like I have two eggs. I have two Garg eggs. That's it. Normally I've
Oh
had
wow.
about 8 or 10 by now. So I'm getting, throwing the roaches in there now. They're eating them, and yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed that makes a difference this season. I've definitely now it's only my second season,
yeah.
but throwing crickets in there. One trick with crickets, I might be inhumane, okay, but they're about to get eaten anyway. Is one thing that drives me nuts is when you have big size crickets, adult, large, whatever you want to call them, and they make that they're rubbing their legs together to make that
Oh,
noise, right?
yeah.
Drives me nuts. You know, it's an easy fix if you're like not just taking a handful and throwing them in. If you've got the time in a smaller collection, I pluck off one of their legs,
And that does it?
right? And that does it because they only have one leg. They can't rub two of them together.
Oh, I thought it's like their wings that do that. And it's the males. But for you, that
I,
works?
you know, for me, I've been doing that, just plucking one leg, and yeah.
Peace and
So
quiet. Okay.
it's been working, peace and quiet. I have not had my wife yell at me this entire season, and I feel bad because at the end where you get all that powder left in the bag, right, from dusting them,
Yeah.
it's like nothing but little legs.
Oh
It's
my
like a bunch
God.
of drumsticks in the corner, you know.
Jeez.
So, but actually, out of all my geckos, your girl is the most vicious when it comes to bugs. She will take down
Her mom
as many
is.
as you throw at her.
Her mom is. And be careful with her because she might be a tail eater. Because Electra is,
Is
she's
she a
eaten
tail eater
about
too?
10 tails. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's eaten everyone's tail. No one's eaten her tail,
interesting.
but she's always looking for food because I think I got her to 60 grams at like 1 year. She was a
Uh
one
huh.
year old and she was six. She was huge. And she's just
That's my
always
two girls up here.
nice. I feel like
Yeah,
they're gonna be great producers if you keep feeding them insects for their whole for whenever they're breeding.
yeah.
But
And I
they have
find
an
that some go
appetite.
off of it.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you have some adults who just won't touch it after a while?
Sorry, bugs or Pangea?
Yeah, bugs. Well, hopefully they don't go off Pangea, then they're dead. But yeah,
Um,
bugs. At least slow down
yeah, slow
the
down.
like how
Yeah,
much
when
they're
they're
gonna
when they're
eat.
juveniles, they go crazy. They'll just eat bugs right in front of
Hmm.
you. A lot of them will, especially if you get them started early. I definitely notice they slow down, but I think once they're bug eaters, unless they're sick, they like to eat bugs.
Though I know once they had the taste. My two girls up here are both from Firehouse Geckos,
Okay, yeah.
and huge, huge. They're actually they have the same father, different mothers, and they're my two best girl blotches.
Hmm.
Okay, by a year old, they were both 60, 65 grams, and they're
That's the
still
best.
at 65 grams right now. And they're just under 2 years. It's like like when you start the season, you're like, oh, if you're just 2 months older,
Right.
like come on, you know.
Hmm.
And there's some people that would breed, but I'm holding off until later this season, if not next season for them. But
Hmm.
they've never touched bugs. They refuse to touch bugs. They will eat if I put in a bowl of Pangea, especially the fig and insect or the breeder formula, it's gone. The entire bowl, they will lick it clean. I don't even have to rinse it, you know. But when it comes to bugs, those two won't touch it. My other ones,
Huh.
they'll eat them.
Yeah, I mean whatever works, right?
Exactly.
They better be a
So,
good Pangea eater if they're not eating bugs.
and they are.
So,
So, everybody's got a little bit of different genetics. So I think that's one thing I would love to kind of work with is certain lines grow faster and certain lines I feel like are slower growers. And so that's another aspect of the geckos I pick out. I
hmm
want to see if we get to a certain point with pattern color, if they're so saturated where they're also slow growers. I
hmm
don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but it's something I'm looking out for.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing I would say
So,
is, I mean, you can usually tell with their skin, but humidity is extremely important. I think it's
mhm.
oftentimes pretty overlooked. Um, so make sure you have, good, I would say higher humidity at all times, right? Like they says like
Mhm.
let the gecko tank dry out. Well, it's 25% humidity in California here sometimes. That's not healthy to have
Yeah, no.
25% humidity for, excuse me, for these geckos. So, um, at least in California here, like I don't have
What
much
do you
air.
let it drop down to then, if you're controlling it?
Well, I mean, I don't actually have a what's called hygrometer in my tanks right
Okay.
now, but when I was doing those measurements and taking those numbers, I wouldn't want it to get below probably 50,
Yeah,
45
around
or
50.
50. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. And I've got you can see the white hydrometer hanging right there. Um, I've got the gobies that monitor throughout the day, and I can see the dips and valleys and everything else like that. And
Hmm.
I've definitely been keeping them on the more moist side. I
Hmm.
also think for breeders, one thing that people talk about is prolapse, right? A lot of males, not a lot of males, but unfortunately, too many males prolapse. And I think one of the biggest things with that is not enough humidity in the environment when they're
Hmm.
trying to get it on,
Yeah.
because they need that humidity to have the lubrication get back in. Um,
Hmm.
I also think that people watch them too much, so sometimes when they see a prolapse, they like immediately have to like keep focusing on it. Where
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to them half the time, and I feel
Yeah.
like if they have prolapse, they got it back in themselves. So that's another theory of mine.
Yeah. Same. I've
So
never had that issue before. I've definitely seen them with it out, right? Right. Like right
yeah,
after breeding, and it's got some juices on it, and they're like licking
yeah,
it, right? But they always
right.
they always go back in. Um, I think I found the
Knock on
biggest
wood.
issue with Chihuahua need a little bit higher humidity. So they were
Yep,
always my indicator of okay, I need up humidity, right? And the gargoyles were always a little bit behind as far as like they wouldn't be as affected with their skin, with their shed. But Chihuahua, they would
sure.
they would really show it. So learn pretty quickly that you got to have really nice humidity even throughout the day.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I know we're both a little bit tired, a long day with our kids. Do you
Yeah.
mind if I take you on a quick journey with Morph Market? I just want to show off some of the babies you got going on right now, and you can tell us a little bit about the parents. Would that be
Sure.
cool?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to share my screen. while I'm pulling this up, are there any other tips that you had in mind that you want to share with the audience?
Now I'll cover it during the Morph Market chat. It's more about like, what you're investing in.
Yes, that's what I want to know about. I love
Yeah.
that. All right. So, oh no, this is your Instagram. Let me go back. While we're here real quick, okay? I just want to show off some things because I mean, I'm scrolling really fast, but I want to get to the top. I did want to ask about this, and I don't want to miss it with time. When did you produce a two-headed gecko?
Oh, that's right. I think it was like last summer now at this point. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Is this thing still kicking, or is it
no,
is
no,
it
it
unfortunately
it
gone?
lived about 9 days. I tried my
Okay.
best to hand feed it because it didn't really get around well, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't eat. I think I maybe saw like one of the heads kind of lap up some of the Pangaea on his nose once, but at that point I
Okay.
couldn't really do anything. Um, yeah, it was a cool gecko for sure.
Yep. Yep. That's loud. I'll, I'll turn that
Good.
down. Very cool. I mean, yeah, it's sad, but actually, out of all the two-headed geckos I've seen, that one looks the most symmetrical, which is usually a good sign. But you never know with nature; it's a cruel mistress.
Yeah, in the beginning,
Um,
it was moving around like it could have a chance. I was pretty excited about
yeah,
it, but it just no nature, right? It wasn't meant to be.
nature, exactly.
Yeah.
Now this one obviously is gorgeous here. Where's your holdback from last year? Is it one of these, or are these some of the new babies?
Yeah. Scroll down a little bit.
Sure.
I think I last had it on her on a video. She's red. I think one more. Okay, you're there. Stop.
Yep.
She's on
I'm
the left.
guessing
This is
this
the
one.
video.
Let me turn off the volume. Am I on the right one?
Yeah, yeah, that's her. So
All
producer
right.
in I
Yeah, put
think
her on that
summer of
video.
2022. But
She's
honestly, in
gorgeous.
the beginning, she didn't even look that great. Okay,
Okay.
which is crazy to think. Some of them go through a major progression change. And she did. I saw. You can tell when they hatch if the color is kind of a little bit fuzzy, I guess you could say.
Uh huh.
You can just kind of tell that the pattern color is going to spread a little bit versus when it's super defined. Like the stripes are
Yes.
almost
Yes. I was
perfect.
talking to Jay about that.
Yeah, I mean, good that he knows too. When the
Yeah.
pattern is really perfect perfect edges and there's just a clear distinction between and pattern color and no pattern color, I find that like that they don't really progress much. They just get darker and
Yep.
they might fill in a little bit more, but yeah, I would pick one that looks little fuzzy colored in the beginning, where you can't really tell
Okay.
what it is. Those are the ones I always at least grow out for 3 to 4 months to see. Oh wow, okay, this one's looking pretty good.
So yeah, like something like this, you know, like you said, a little bit fuzzy. It's not a straight line. These are gorgeous. Is this year or this is a previous year?
That was 2023. That's the front one is a holdback male.
Yeah,
I'm
you can see
super
the head
excited about
color.
him because he has more head color than his dad. The mom
Mm-hmm.
was a Tiki's Gecko's dam, which is that super like red base six stripe one. And
Yeah.
then the one actually in the back is a half sibling to yours. That's an Electra baby. Um,
Ah, nice. We
that
keep
one
talking
actually,
about Electra. I got to show off Electra
yeah,
real
that one
quick.
ended up being male. I was actually a little disappointed because
Oh,
I've hatched a lot of males this
sometimes
year
you want a
or last
female.
season.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be female.
Let me.
Yeah,
I'm gonna scroll
she's
down and
probably
find her
way
real
down
quick because I
there.
saw some.
She's
I
on
I was looking earlier.
she's on the Morph Market page. If you want to just go there and start looking at the babies, because I know I
Oh
for
yeah,
sure have one
yeah.
of her babies,
Oh,
which
this
is
is the dad to mine. Real quick.
yeah.
So you don't have him anymore,
I don't
correct?
know. No, I
Yeah.
he did pretty well, you know.
Yeah.
But as you can see, so it's kind of an oranger color. His pattern isn't super like the red isn't super filled in. The red orange isn't super filled
Yep.
in, but he has good coverage. So look at the babies and about a quarter of them were better than him. The really nice one from 2022, that was on that video you just saw. That's an offspring from
Yeah.
him, which is kind of hard to believe. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I decided to part ways with him and use this other male from Triple Two, and for me
No, it's
that
worked
it
out
paid
for
off.
you.
Yeah, I always go for
Very cool. Yeah,
what they're showing.
let me take your advice. I'll stop this real quick, and then we'll jump back to Morph Market. All right. So here we are in Morph Market. Um, and now I'm gonna do what I normally do when I'm looking for a new gecko. And since I'm a
Oh man,
billionaire, I'll just go highest price first.
don't call me out that way,
Nice job.
man.
No, not for you. Well, I just got one of Ariel's babies. I got a really nice. He probably would have priced it just like this, a blotch male. So I'm excited to work with that one too.
Nice. I
But
really like that one he has on there. That the one that's
which
6K.
one?
The one on the top row, on
Yep,
towards the right. That one's super nice. If I would totally pick
this
that
one
up
right
if I
here.
wasn't like trying not to buy things.
Yeah, this stripe, this one here.
No, no, the other one. I would do the other
Oh,
one.
the other one. Okay,
I mean, that one's nice
let's
too.
see.
That one's really, yeah.
Oh yeah, look at the head color on that.
Yeah, I mean, not just the
That's
head
really
color, but
nice.
it's got, rich red already. It's like what, 15 grams, 13 grams. But
Yeah, 13
look how
grams.
thick the lateral is
Look
there.
how thick that is.
Yeah,
Yeah. He didn't show me that the other day when I was checking on his geckos.
someone should buy it.
Yeah.
I would if I could,
Yep.
but I can't buy
I
it right now.
guarantee it'll be at Tinley this weekend. So if I see it, I'll take a little video and then implant it into. Well, I can't because this will come out before Tinley. But maybe I'll do a little
Send it
video
to me on
later on.
Instagram.
We'll do. There we go. That's what we'll do. So we got your gecko here, at least the one you have first off
Yeah,
on this list.
yeah.
Um, gorgeous. I mean, it was funny. I was actually my wife. I not really into this other than kind of helping me stay afloat. And all of a sudden she found Morph Market, I think for the first time, and she's like looking at all the numbers for the first time and
Oh
checking
no.
out. She's like, "What? What? Wait, why aren't yours priced like that?" I'm like, "Because I didn't produce something that quality, not yet."
Yeah.
So this is the mail you've been talking about, the one from
So yeah, that
Triple.
tri
What's the company
triple
called again?
triple two reptile.
Triple two. I got to remember that because yeah, amazing stuff. So yeah, this male has definitely thrown some heat
Yeah.
this year. And then this is an older female of yours, correct?
That's my rack house female that I got in breeding for a couple of years. And if you look at
Very
her, she's
nice.
not super impressive when you look at her, right? She kind of has, I mean, she has 6 stripes, but they're definitely not really
Yeah,
filled in, especially on the laterals. But
sure.
I mean, look at her offspring, right? And
Right.
she made the really nice 2022 holdback as well. The really red one that was on
And
my Instagram.
that's where, you know, unlike our strategy where we're buying the most visually appealing gecko, Rack House I know will preach, and I thought it was a sales tactic at first. You know, it's the lineage. It's you gotta buy, because we've had X amount of generations of producing high percentage yield, six
Yeah.
stripes.
I mean, I
Okay,
definitely
great.
agree with him on that.
I agree with it. Yeah, no, we both agree.
With
But
his
if I'm
geckos, I agree
keeping
with him.
10 geckos, yes.
Yeah.
If your lineage goes back 2 generations,
Yeah.
maybe not,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but his goes back far enough.
Hmm.
So on here, right, you've got the thick laterals there. Why aren't you keeping this gecko?
It's a secret.
Just stay small? Ah.
Well, I mean, I have two other males I'm planning on breeding, which,
Ah,
in my opinion, I want to breed them because they look better.
okay.
Some would say they like this look better, right? The other
Yeah,
ones, they just have thicker laterals. That's really it. That's really what it comes down to. So
fair
I'm
enough.
going more for the thicker
And
lateral.
that's pretty thick. That's pretty awesome. Let's look at some of your other ones real quick.
But I mean, as far as like the pricing as to like why I'm pricing it 4,500 versus like you could see a male that, oh, it has 6 stripes and it's $950, right? Like, so I have a six
Right.
stripe on there that's, I think, 725. It's probably from
Yep.
it's the same female, I think. But
Let's
if
see.
you look at the
Yeah,
the
same
overall
pairing.
thickness of those stripes, one, the lateral is a little bit thinner. It's not as filled in, right? As far as like it's more of an orangey color. It's probably gonna look more like the mom versus
Yeah,
that other $4,500 one. Um, I think that's going to transfer a lot more to the offspring. And it's a male too.
absolutely.
You can pair that to like I've paired it to four females, and if you have successful pairings, that can make you
It
forty
should be
thousand
worth
dollars in a year versus buying the
it.
$725 one. So that's why I have a
Right.
huge discrepancy. Like this one is what, a sixth of the cost compared to the other
Yep.
one, but you're gonna easily make your money's worth if you have the more expensive one. So
If you have the funds to start out with, and unlike, if you're just starting out, this $725 one though
mhm.
is a great gecko to buy
It is, yeah.
because, going back to the lineage, if this is your first gecko and you don't have, 4 grand, um, you've got rack house genetics going back generations. You've got this male that's just been a proven stud, right? And
Hmm.
so that is a great pickup. And I'm going to probably kick myself for saying this, but I've got a gecko for sale right now that's very similar. I actually think mine looks a little nicer. Maybe it doesn't have the same lineage yours does. For $700, so we're competing on those two. Um, and so, but I'll show you that one in just a little bit. But people would go and say, well, why don't you keep that one? It's pretty nice, and it is nice, the one I have. Um, but it's my vision, right? And I want to stay small. So
Hmm.
I think again we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
I do want to see. I think this one is my Electra. Yeah, this one has my mom. So this is Electra, guys. Look at this female. She is neon. Is she that bright in person?
She was that bright in person. She is no longer that bright. She
Was.
actually darkened.
Okay.
She kind of had this like really bright orangish pink base
Yeah.
on orange stripes, and it just made her look like she's like neon, especially when I took her out for pictures. It's like this is insane. Um, but
Yeah.
now she's maybe matured more, so her pattern color is more of a orange red, more towards the red.
Okay.
Her base color is about the same. I have to guess maybe a tad darker, but her pattern has significantly faded because she's been
Okay.
breeding for 2 or 3 seasons, um, and she's a tail eater.
And that
So
happens.
she's picking fights with everyone in there, trying to eat their tails. So she's getting bit all the time,
You got a
and
few
it just
scars here and there.
yeah. And some lines lose their color, some don't. Hers she
Right.
has, and that's how it is. But like if you look at the baby she produces, the really
Hey,
nice one
look
that I
at
had on
that.
my Instagram a couple of days ago. That's a
So this
clutch
is
mate.
not for
So
sale, but this is a clutch made. But this one even just absolutely stellar.
yeah, that's hands
So
down the best one I've ever produced. I personally think it's going to be like, one of the top 20 best gargoyles produced by the time it's done progressing. I hope because
yeah.
yeah, I think
Well,
we'll see.
if you say anything that I have you want to trade, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Uh,
I definitely plan on
very
breeding this
cool.
one. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, these are absolutely gorgeous, man. Yeah, I'll show you real quick the one I have, just to kind of go back to your point to illustrate. Because I agree with you when it's a little bit fuzzy right on the sides, and going back to this one, it 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 has sort of a defined, but not a super defined one. Where let me go to my
Yeah.
page real quick. I scrolled down here. So it's this guy. I just took new photos today, and now that it's fired down in these photos,
Hmm.
you can sort of see, right?
Help me, six
So not super thick,
six
but
grams.
it's got potential,
I mean,
you
considering its
know?
size, it has a good amount of potential. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. So if it doesn't sell, I'm not gonna cry.
uh-huh.
But again, I've got some killer males that outcompete this hands down. And do I need more males? You know? So I probably want to pick up some nice new females.
Yeah,
If he was a
depends
girl, I'd
what you're
probably keep
doing.
him. Right. Everybody's either short on males or short on females. We're never short on both. Well, maybe sometimes when we're starting out, we're short on both.
Yeah.
So, Very cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
so very nice. Anything else you want to show off with the ones you have listed?
Um,
Or
I'm
kind of
going on.
talk us through what we're seeing here? I do love this
Oh,
real quick. I just
yeah,
want to
the one
point
for
this out.
1850. Oh,
I'll circle back there, but this is unique to me. Do you see this very often?
oh,
You know what
the
I'm pointing at right
connection
now?
at the
The
neck.
connection there.
I see that in maybe about 20% of the super stripes. It is
Do
really
you?
cool,
Okay.
especially when they have it and it's like a knockout gecko. It really completes the look. It's kind of like the head pattern color.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see
I
it
just noticed
super
that scrolling
often,
on this.
but it's cool. But is it something that
Very
like
nice.
makes it 625 versus 550? No, I wouldn't say
No.
no.
No, but it's still cool. I just had to point out I liked it. You were going to say this one here?
Oh yeah, yeah, the one that's 1850.
Yeah. Oh, you got the head
So
coloration going on.
yeah, that one's got a little bit of head color. So the female, right? I told everyone about this one. If you scroll and look at the mom, so
Yep.
that picture that the one that's really red on my Instagram, I think I posted it
Yep.
like I don't know, maybe last year. Um, it's same gecko. That's just an indoor picture of it, and it's fired down. So it has this super
Yeah. It's
rich
gorgeous.
red, and then fired down red base color, so it kind of looks pinkish. But that one is a very consistent, thick six stripe producer, and that's one I got from Tiki's Geckos a couple of years back. But I think it's reflected in the pricing, right? Like the baby looks exactly like the mom did when I got her.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Okay.
almost identical. So this
Oh,
one, the
nice.
color usually progresses really well in this line. It turns like
Yep.
blood red. And then
Yeah.
it's kind of 50-50 if they
And
end up
when do
with
you see
the nice red
the
base.
base color kick in with a lot of your babies?
With mine, because I mainly breed lighter, kind of yellows or oranges, or I just had this one red gecko. But
Right.
with this one's siblings, it was really hard to tell until about like 4 to 5 months old or so. Then you start to
Okay.
see like I think this one's going to be a red base, which it because it almost has like
They have a look.
a pinkish
Yep.
purpley color to the base on the head and in between the color versus the yellows.
Yep.
I've noticed they kind of look more brown. They look darker, but it's like a brownish with a little bit of yellow. Um,
Yep.
but sometimes they surprise the heck out of you, and you're like, "Oh man, I thought that was going to be yellow, or I thought it was going to be red," and they go the
Right.
opposite way. You really don't
And
know
that's
until
always a
they're yeah, you really don't know until they're about
no, you
like
don't.
6 months to a
Until it's
year.
that one day. Yeah, so it's that one day you go and you look in the bin and you're like, "Who the heck are you?" Right? It's like
Yeah,
it's always nice to have the babies that just every time you open it up, you're just happy because they started off, as a 10.
yeah.
But there's all those other babies that you're growing up. I have this one right now. It was the last egg to hatch from last season, and every time I look at it, I'm like, "You're looking pretty good. That those laterals are coming in even more, and
Hmm.
the colors popping a little bit better than even some of the siblings." Um, it's just kind of fun watching that progress. So
Yeah, I mean,
there's always something to do.
if you can grow them out to 30 grams, that's ideally the best, right? But that's,
Oh yeah,
6 months to a year, maybe even longer for some people. And it's a lot of work, right? If you make 40 babies a year. So I tend to sell mine um, when they're 3 to 4 months old. And
yep,
hopefully that allows people to get a good deal on them too. Lets them grow them out, get them
right.
for, a price that's affordable versus if I grew mine out to 30 grams, people would be like, you want 6,000 for this gecko? And then some people do that, right?
Right.
Like it's a strategy to do that too, and you get more bang for your buck, but
Absolutely.
you got to take care of that animal until they're at least a year old, and that's a lot of work.
It's your hobby life balance.
Yeah,
Where's your sweet spot, and we're aligning pretty easily here. So I think
yeah,
we're in the same strategy. I know a lot of people have told me I should have held back everything from this year just to know what my lines look like. Well, the funny thing is, I didn't pair up the same geckos at all. Every pair I did this year is different from my pairs last year. Yes, it's the same like adults,
Yeah.
but I mixed everything up. I'm like, you know what? I totally screwed up some of these pairings, and the ones that worked out really well, I actually sold one of the males because it just wasn't what I wanted.
Hmm.
So everything this year is going to be a new surprise. I'm excited to see these eggs start to hatch.
You'll probably change things up
So
again too next year. Like for the first couple of years, I was doing that a lot versus like now I'm always gonna pair this at least the a trio that I had, right? And it
yep,
was 1 to 4 at one point. Now it's like one to two because one of the other females kind of beat up. But I plan on always, pairing those because they produce good offspring, right?
very
Until
cool.
they're not producing good stuff anymore, and then the market or the the paradigm shift of like, oh, my nice ones I'm producing aren't like, you know, high end anymore, then maybe
Yep.
I'll sell those off and breed the only the better ones.
Yeah. So you brought up the market really quickly. A lot of people complain about the market, and I'll be honest with you. I follow a lot of your geckos. Um, yours seem to move. Am I wrong?
The gargoyles, yes, they definitely are still
Yeah.
they're moving for me. Um,
Yeah,
it,
that's what I'm saying. And so I'm impressed. You think that's just because of the quality you keep, or what do you attribute that to?
I
Or are you dropping the price like $2,000 as soon as someone asks?
no, no, my prices are my prices are
Darn, I was
about the
hoping you'd say
same.
yes.
They're about the same as they've been for the past, I think, two or three, probably 2 seasons. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, there was a huge spike, I think, like shortly after COVID, especially when all the guys from Asia were buying like the best stuff and throwing ridiculous numbers
yeah, I
out there.
missed out on that one.
Yeah, I barely got it in time for that, but uh, yeah, I mean, everything is. I think it's slower overall, but because I have some of the higher end stuff, those are able to move, and I don't think I price them at ridiculous prices necessarily. I know
No,
4,500 is a lot of money if you think about it, especially for a lizard, right? But
right.
like the people who see the worth in that male will say, that's totally worth it. I have
Hmm.
three other grow up females who are as good or, on par or whatever, or even better. And I'm going to produce some really, really nice stuff with them because they will. So,
Right. When the market would teach you really quickly, if you were pricing it too high for what it's worth, they wouldn't sell,
yeah,
right? But years are moving, and I have to applaud you for knowing the market, producing that consistently. And that's the dream. That's my dream. Is that not that I'm going to get rich off this.
yeah.
Yeah. Are you retiring soon to sell geckos full time?
No, that's the dream. Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah, that is the dream. But if I could prove to my wife that I can, maybe take her on a Disney vacation for a weekend, with some gecko money, that'd be great. I
Yeah.
was joking around with her about that after she saw your page, and we were sitting in bed talking about the finances of it, and she goes, "Let's be honest here. If you made that kind of money on a gecko, you just turn around and buy another gecko." I'm like, "Yeah, see, you know me. We're perfect,
Yeah.
because that's what I do.
That.
Whether it's a gargoyle or maybe I get into leechies like you did,
Hmm.
or some other species. I reinvest into the hobby.
The same
So,
conversation goes, yeah, is happening in my house. Except I'm kind of
right.
done buying. I haven't bought anything in almost half a year now, I think. Um,
Yeah,
so I think there's a point in time where you just kind of stop, and I
sure.
believe, I hope, I really hope I've reached that point. Because yeah, same
Well,
conversation with
and
the
you have the
wife.
enclosures. That's the other big purchase. People don't really factor into the cost of everything.
Yeah,
Is those are not cheap, especially if you have multiple geckos.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
especially for the quality ones. So it's all a package deal. And but yeah, you're doing it right, man.
yeah. Thanks,
Um,
Bobby.
what other last minute advice would you give if there was somebody starting out right now, maybe there's a young kid, maybe it's someone who's a little bit older that just is starting to get into gargoyle geckos. What strategy would you tell them if they wanted to be, producing similar quality to what you're doing right now?
Oh, that's hard.
Just buy from you, right?
I, no, there's a lot of good breeders out there. Like
Oh,
J
there are.
Reptiles
Yeah.
to produce some really nice stuff. Um, yeah, there's a lot out there. That's a tough question because, like, especially a younger breeder, I wouldn't really recommend that they drop $4,500 on an animal, right? Even if it's a
Right.
male, like that's someone who's young and just getting into that. That's a lot of money. If you want to produce the
Absolutely.
best stuff, then I would probably say yes, but I don't think I'd recommend that for someone who's just getting into it, especially if they're younger.
Sure.
Um, I guess if
And
they,
when I say younger, I'm thinking like early 20s.
oh,
That's young to
early
me.
20s. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, bottom line, if you want to produce the best stuff fastest, then
Yep.
buy the most expensive, not most expensive, the best quality ones, which will probably have a price
There is a
tag
difference.
with it, that you can
Yep.
afford, and go for quality over quantity. Have one breeding group or even just a pair.
Yeah.
Because if you try to, split it up and have six geckos in the same amount of money that you could have bought the one, you might not be happy with your productions, or you might be 5, 6 years, even longer behind as far as like what you're going to produce. So if you can afford it, go
Yeah.
for it. If you can't, then that's totally fine, and start at a lower tier, and go from there, and definitely keep your best holdbacks. Don't ever sell
Don't ever sell them. Okay.
them. Yep.
Very cool. No, that's great advice. Um, and actually, just because you brought it up, the holdbacks, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to stay small, how do you envision keeping that advice, right? Not being a hypocrite, holding your back your best stuff.
Uh-huh.
But at some point, if you hold back at least even two every year, that can add up pretty quickly. So what's your thought on that? Do you have a game plan, or is that a to be determined problem for future
Oh,
Bryan?
yeah, no, I've traded a whole lot in the past 5 years with actually, sorry, it's been longer than that. Six, almost coming up on 7 years, I guess, with the geckos.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I've relied heavily on trades. So
Okay.
if you have something that's nice and you see someone else that has something that's nice, just reach out, but don't be like, hey, can I trade you that? And that's, your opening question. Just, get to know the person, the breeder, talk to them, ask some
Right.
questions. And then, say, hey, I have this really nice one. This is like one of my best holdbacks. Like, I'm looking to diversify and see if they want to trade. And I'd say you have a pretty good chance. Like, that's how I got a lot of my geckos, is trades.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, I think that right there is some huge advice. I put out a video on how to get a gecko if you don't have a ton of money
uh-huh.
on hand. So if you haven't watched that, go watch that, Brian.
Okay.
You now you could do a master class on that, but basically one of the major tips was trading. Was
Hmm.
was looking at what you have and see if you can cultivate those relationships and find out what people have, because not everybody posts their holdbacks, right? I don't even know what your holdbacks all look like, every last one of them, and so sometimes just asking and being polite, and if it's mutual and you guys are both benefiting, you'd be surprised how many people are willing to do trades.
Hmm.
I think people are excited about it, especially if you're both thinking you get something good out of it, it's a win-win for both of you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that is awesome. All right, Bryan, I've kept us up way too late. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I had a lot of fun just chatting geckos with you. Where can people find you if they want to go? Obviously, you've got a morph market, but where can people find you?
Yeah, on Instagram. I also have a Facebook, but I'm mainly more active on Instagram. So, uh, Koala's Geckos
Okay,
on Instagram, and then obviously Morph
Koala
Market.
Geckos.
Message me there if you want to
And I
chat.
didn't even touch base on your amazing logo. I love the giant koala head with the gargoyle on top.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is such a cool logo.
It, I think I got that done about 2 years ago. It was by Adeline Robinson Art. I think,
Oh, she did it for you.
yeah, I know she
She's
did.
awesome.
She did. My friend Christian from Cold Blooded Science. He has like this. It's a leachy. in a like an Einstein like lab jacket doing some lab
Yeah.
work. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like I want to try to do something similar. But yeah, she's a great artist, and super glad I went with her.
Yeah, she's a fantastic artist. I have a picture that she drew of a gargoyle right in my desk at work. So that's what I show everybody what a gargoyle gecko is. And she's got amazing gargoyle geckos herself.
Yeah, she does.
So, yeah, but maybe that'd be a person one day I could trade with.
You never know.
But
Got
I'll
to
have to,
reach out.
we'll see what my babies come out as. We'll see.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Bryan, thank you again so much for your time. And I'll see you next time. We'll have to have you back on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Bobby. And of course, I'd love to hop on again, see if I have any more new info, maybe in a year from now or something.
That'd be great. All right, man. I'll see you later.
Okay, take care, Bob. Bye.
Hey, if you've enjoyed this video and want to encourage me to make more Gargoyle Gecko content, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, and maybe check out one of the videos right over there. I'll see you next time on Gecko Cove.